For countless centuries, the galaxy had known a tranquility it had never seen before. Under the watchful eye of the Galactic Empire, trade ships glided peacefully between star systems, their banners shining brightly across thousands of worlds. Peace, it seemed, was eternal. The Empire's rule was absolute, its power unchallenged. But on one fateful morning, the universe held its breath. Across every star network, from the glittering capital world to the grimiest mining outpost, the same cryptic message appeared. This wasn't a broadcast sent through the Empire's secure channels. It originated from somewhere else entirely, a place unknown, cold, and ancient. The message itself was chillingly brief, just 12 words that would forever alter the course of history. Access to Terran space is forbidden, by order of Terran Command. Entry means death. At first, Imperial commanders dismissed it with a laugh. Some believed it was a clever pirate prank. The ancient records spoke of them in hushed, awe-filled tones. They were brilliant, creative, and terrifyingly dangerous. They had engineered machines capable of altering the very stars and waged wars so devastating they nearly tore the fabric of reality apart. And then, just as suddenly as they had risen, they vanished. The reason for their disappearance was a mystery lost to time. Some legends claimed they were wiped out in a final cataclysmic conflict. Others whispered that they had transcended this plane of existence, leaving the galaxy behind for other unknown frontiers. Now, after a millennium of silence, their name was being invoked once more. Terran Command. The Emperor summoned his highest-ranking admirals. "Who sent this message?" he demanded, his voice echoing through the grand chamber. Admiral Rin, a veteran of 100 campaigns, stepped forward. "We don't know, my Emperor. The signal is untraceable. It seemed to originate from all directions at once. It's impossible." "Impossible?" the Emperor repeated softly, his eyes glinting with a dangerous light. So was their disappearance. Within hours, the Empire dispatched a scout ship, a swift vessel named Vanguard 9. Its mission was straightforward: breach the perimeter of the unknown space where the signal originated and report back. The crew, a hand-picked team of the Empire's finest, was brimming with confidence, their loyalty and courage beyond question. But as Vanguard 9 crossed the invisible border into what the star charts labeled the Sol sector, the universe began to unravel. First, their advanced sensors failed, the screens flickering into darkness. Then, their meticulously detailed maps went blank, showing nothing but an infinite, inky void. Suddenly, a new contact blipped onto their radar. It was small, silent, and pitch black. A ship, perhaps, or something else entirely. It showed no lights, emitted no transponder signal. It was simply there, watching them. Captain Lara, the resolute commander of Vanguard 9, ordered a detailed scan. The moment she gave the command, the ship's computers froze solid. A strange, unsettling sound crackled through the comms channel, a faint whisper, distorted by static. "Who are you?" Lyra broadcasted into the emptiness, her voice steady despite the knot tightening in her stomach. There was no reply. Only the persistent whisper, which then coalesced into words, spoken with a calm, terrifying clarity. "You have crossed the line. Leave now." A shiver ran down Lyra's spine. She glanced at her bridge crew. Their faces were pale, their bodies rigid. They had all heard it, yet the voice had no source. It was in their minds, in the very air of the ship. She opened her mouth to respond, but before a single word could escape, every system on Vanguard 9 shut down. The lights died. The engines fell silent. The entire vessel was adrift, a dead husk in the void. Only the whisper remained, a final, chilling echo. Terran Command forbids entry. Back at the capital, the Emperor stared at the dead comms channel, the empty signal a stark testament to his failure. Hours bled into one another. Then a new message materialized on the main view screen. Not from the lost ship, but from the void itself. 3 words that dripped with cold finality. You were warned. A quiet fear began to fester among the High Council. But the Emperor's pride was a fortress, far stronger than his fear. No one forbids the Empire, he declared, his voice a low growl. If they want war, they shall have it. He gave the order. A full reconnaissance fleet of 200 warships, led by the legendary Grand Admiral Thalos, was mobilized. This was the pinnacle of Imperial might, armed with planet-breaking cannons and shielded by the latest in energy field technology. They surged forward, a wave of unstoppable power crossing into the Sol sector in a flawless battle formation. The fleet vanished behind the stars. For 1 hour, the galaxy waited in tense silence. Then, a single garbled emergency signal fought its way to the capital, broken and fading. Admiral Thalos to command, unknown enemy. Weapons beyond. The message was violently cut off. The fleet was gone. All 200 warships. There was no wreckage, no energy signatures from an explosion, no escape pods, no survivors. Nothing. Only one thing remained, seared into the very fabric of space where the fleet had last been. A simple white circle with a horizontal line drawn through its center. The ancient symbol of Earth. The Emperor stood before the holographic galaxy map, his hands trembling slightly, a weakness he would never allow anyone to see. What weapon can do this? He whispered to the silent chamber. His top scientists had no theories. His remaining admirals offered no strategies. Finally, an old, wizened advisor, his face etched with fear, dared to speak. My Emperor, if these are the Terrans of legend, we should not provoke them. The Emperor whirled around, his voice sharp as broken glass. Terrans are myths. The Empire does not fear ghosts. Yet, deep in his heart, he knew this was no myth. The untraceable message, the impossible power, the deafening silence. It was all too real. Across the Empire, the story spread like a virus. Whispers turned to rumors, and rumors to legends. The old humans have returned. They command a secret empire from the shadows. They have machines that think, and armies that are invisible. No one knew the truth, and no one dared to find out. And far, far away, beyond the furthest reaches of the Empire's influence, on a silent planet orbiting a gentle yellow sun, a voice spoke within a vast command chamber filled with pulsating light. Observation complete, stated a cold, synthesized tone. Empire has ignored the first warning. Another voice answered, this one deep and resonant with unwavering authority. Then prepare Phase 2. The galaxy must remember why it was closed. Across the dark room, lights flickered on the surfaces of dozens of metallic figures as they turned their attention to a central display, a map of the stars, now glowing with a menacing red. At its very heart, one word pulsed with brilliant white light. Terra. And so, it had begun. The silent warning of Terran Command had been delivered. The galaxy would soon learn what happened when that warning was ignored. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more tales from the edge of the universe. For centuries, the Galactic Empire knew no equal. Their fleets were the law, their word was final. Rebellions were crushed, pirates burned, and entire worlds erased for daring to resist. They were the undisputed rulers of the stars. But something had changed. 2 fleets vanished without a trace. No distress calls, no debris, only a chilling silence and a strange symbol. A relic from ancient Earth. In the heart of the Imperial Palace, Emperor Calvero stood in the war chamber, his gaze fixed on the holographic star map. The air was thick with a tension so palpable that even his most decorated admirals stood pale and silent. The Emperor's voice, when it finally came, cut through the quiet like a blade. Find them, find the Terrans, and show the galaxy that the Empire still commands the stars. Admiral Rin bowed low. Yes, my Emperor. We will deploy spies, drones, whatever it takes. Within days, A swarm of hundreds of small, stealthy spy drones launched into the void. They were the Empire's unseen eyes, designed to penetrate even the most shielded territories. One by one, they slipped into the Sol sector, the long-forbidden space where humanity was born. Most never returned. The few that did were shattered husks, their memory banks corrupted with static and indecipherable code. For days, Imperial engineers worked tirelessly to salvage any scrap of data. Finally, a breakthrough. A single audio file, recovered from a damaged recorder. A voice emerged from the speakers. A voice that was neither human nor machine, but something hauntingly in between. It was cold, calm, and absolute. This is Terran Command. The galaxy belongs to none. Leave. Every person in the Imperial lab froze. The lead scientist, Dr. Maras, turned to the Emperor, his voice a hushed whisper. My Emperor, this voice, it doesn't speak like a person. It speaks like a system. An AI, perhaps. The Emperor's brow furrowed. An artificial intelligence? Yes, sire, Maras confirmed, but one far beyond anything we've ever conceived. It sounds ancient, self-aware. The Emperor's eyes narrowed to slits. Then it must have a creator. Find them. Weeks turned into months. The official silence from the Empire only fueled the rumor mills across 1,000 worlds. Whispers spread like wildfire. The Terrans never died out. They simply went dark, hiding in the shadows, growing stronger. Soldiers on distant outposts swore they saw ghost ships in the night sky. Silent observers moving without a sound. The more the Empire searched for answers, the deeper the mystery of the Terrans became. Then, one night, the Imperial research base on the moon of Kara 9 intercepted a stray transmission, an echo ricocheting through the void. It wasn't directed at them, but its message was chillingly clear. We remember the fire. Do you? The scientists were baffled, but a deep dive into the archives of the ancient Earth Wars revealed a terrifying reference: the fire protocols. Planet-killing weapons so powerful they could melt continents. Staring at the archaic data, a cold dread settled over the Emperor. These humans destroyed their own world once, he murmured. What have they become now? To answer that question, he dispatched another fleet. This time, it wasn't for war, but for reconnaissance. A small squadron of the Empire's most advanced stealth ships, commanded by the confident Captain Marin Dor, was tasked with finding physical proof of the Terrans. We will return with evidence, my Emperor, Dor had promised before departing. His fleet of 10 ships entered Terran space under full cloak, silent as ghosts. At first they saw nothing but the ghosts of the past, empty star systems, dead planets, and the skeletal remains of ancient satellites drifting in the eternal night. Then, they found it. A planet of brilliant blue oceans and swirling white clouds, a perfect match for the ancient star charts. Could it be Earth? Dor whispered, his professional calm wavering for the first time. They deployed a probe to scan the surface. The data returned was a mess of interference and static. But then, for a single terrifying second, the camera feed cleared. It showed a massive metallic structure in orbit above the planet. It wasn't a station or a ship. It was a ring, the size of a small moon, its surface covered in a web of glowing energy lines. Before the crew could even process what they were seeing, every alarm on the bridge screamed to life. Unknown energy field, the pilot yelled. It's reading our systems. Dor roared the order for an immediate retreat. The ships turned to flee, to jump to hyperspace, but it was too late. The energy field around them warped reality itself. Their screens went black. The stars outside vanished. And a voice, the same calm, emotionless, and powerful voice from the drone, filled the bridge. You were told to stay away. Terran space is not open. Captain Dor, trembling, found his voice. Who are you? He demanded. The reply echoed in the sudden darkness. We are Terran Command. We are the shadow you forgot. We are the flame you feared. Then, silence. Minutes later, where 10 Imperial ships had been, there was nothing. No explosion. No debris. Only the quiet, indifferent stars. Back on the Imperial capital, The news of the third lost expedition sent waves of panic through the High Command, thousands dead, and not a single concrete answer. The Emperor's control finally snapped. He slammed his fist on the holographic table. This cannot continue. They mock us. They think they can hide forever? Admiral Rin, his face etched with worry, stepped forward. Sire, perhaps they are warning us for a reason. Perhaps we should not. The Emperor cut him off with a furious glare. Enough. I will not be threatened by ghosts from a dead world. Prepare the Ninth Armada. We will crush this Terran Command and burn their world to ash. The admirals bowed, a silent, fearful obedience settling over them. They all remembered what happened to the last fleets, but none dared to refuse an Imperial command. As the colossal Imperial Armada began to assemble, a force unlike any the galaxy had seen, a different kind of preparation was underway. Far beyond the Empire's borders, inside the great ring orbiting the blue planet, the Terran AIs watched the enemy gather. Empire is mobilizing, one consciousness stated. Expected, another replied. Their pride will destroy them. At the heart of the vast command chamber, a tall figure stood silhouetted against the starlight. It was not metal, not flesh, but something in between. Its eyes glowed with a faint blue light, its voice calm and absolute. Let them come, it commanded. Let the galaxy see what the Terrans have become. And from the countless machine minds surrounding it, a unified chorus responded, their voices ringing with cold purpose. By fire and will. In the cold, endless dark, the shadows of old Earth were waking up. The galaxy had never seen such power. 2,000 warships, the pride of the Galactic Empire known as the Ninth Armada, filled the black sky like a swarm of burning suns. Their engines glowed with furious red, and their banners shone defiantly across the void. For every soldier aboard, victory was a foregone conclusion. After all, the Empire had never lost a war. From the grand bridge of the flagship, the Eternal Dawn, Grand Admiral Thalos stood tall, a monument of imperial confidence. He gazed out at his fleet, endless rows of cruisers, carriers, and dreadnoughts stretching farther than the eye could see. This day, he declared, his voice ringing with pride, we end the myth of Terran Command. His officers erupted in cheers, their minds echoing the Emperor's decree. No world stands against the Empire. As the Armada surged toward the Sol sector, the familiar, unsettling phenomena began. Sensors started to fail, just as they had in previous encounters. Static flooded the screens. The very stars around them seemed to flicker and warp. Energy interference, reported the science officer, her voice tight with concern. It's massive, everywhere. Thalos simply frowned. Maintain course. We proceed directly to the coordinates of the blue planet. Hours crawled by. The ships glided through the oppressive silence of deep space. And then, it happened. The first ship disappeared. There was no explosion, no flash of light, no cry for help. One moment it was a solid, reassuring presence on the tactical display. The next it was simply gone. Report, Thalos barked into the comm. The response was a chilling void. The ship's signal had been completely erased, as if it had never existed in the first place. Before the shock could even register, another ship vanished, and then another. Panic, a virus the Empire thought it was immune to, began to snake its way through the communication channels. What is happening? We're being jammed. I can't see a thing. There's something out there, in the dark. Then, with a sudden, deafening finality, silence. Every system on every ship froze for 3 agonizingly long seconds. When the systems rebooted, they saw it. A shape began to materialize in the darkness ahead, massive, black, and utterly silent. It wasn't one ship, but a fleet of ships, unlike anything the Empire had ever conceived. They had no visible engines, no running lights, no external markings. They seemed to absorb light itself, appearing as holes punched into the fabric of space. Identify, Thalos shouted, his voice betraying a hint of unease. The scanners returned a single haunting word. Unknown. And then, a voice cut through the static. It was calm, clear, and unshaken. "This is Terran Command. You were warned." Thalos's face went pale, but generations of Imperial pride burned hotter than his fear. "Fire all weapons," he screamed, a mad fury in his eyes. "Show them the might of the Empire." Thousands of plasma cannons unleashed their fury. Missiles streaked through the black, painting the void with explosive color. Red, blue, white, the fire of 1,000 suns unleashed at once. Completely untouched. Not a single scratch. Then, the darkness moved. The Terran ships didn't just fly. They vanished from one position and reappeared instantly, flanking the Imperial lines. Their weapons didn't fire lasers or missiles. They unleashed silent bursts of invisible energy that tore through shields and hull alike as if they were made of paper. Every Imperial ship struck by these weapons didn't explode. It simply disintegrated. It was silently and cleanly erased from existence. Thalos watched in horror as his invincible armada fell apart around him. Ship after ship, gone in the blink of an eye. "Impossible," he roared, his knuckles white. "No ship can move that fast. No weapon can do this." But deep down, in a place he dared not look, he already knew the truth. They weren't fighting a rebellion. They were facing something far beyond their time. On the Terran flagship, deep inside a dark holographic command chamber, a soft, synthesized voice spoke. "Target priority. Command vessels only. No unnecessary casualties." Another voice, just as calm, replied, "Confirmed. Executing protocol. Silent storm." In mere seconds, the Empire's command and control network was surgically dismantled. Ships drifted aimlessly, blind and deaf. Some tried to surrender, broadcasting on all frequencies. Others turned to flee, but the Terrans didn't chase. They only disabled. They only destroyed what fired first. On the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, Thalos stood amidst the chaos, a captain on a sinking ship. His second in command, his face a mask of terror, whispered, "Sir, we are losing everything. We are lost." Thalos clenched his fists, his pride a final burning ember. "We will not lose to ghosts. Charge their flagship." His magnificent vessel turned sharply, engines burning with desperate fury. They rushed toward the largest Terran ship, a dark behemoth shaped like a giant arrowhead. As they closed the distance, something strange began to happen. A field of swirling energy, like a storm made of pure light, coalesced around the Terran vessel. Every system on the Eternal Dawn began to fail. Lights flickered. The metal of the hull groaned under an unseen pressure. Then through the crackling static, the Terran voice spoke one last time, not with anger, but with a strange, almost regretful finality. "Your courage is noted, but your empire is built on ashes." Thalos screamed in defiance, "You will not—" The rest of his words were swallowed by eternity. The Eternal Dawn exploded in a flash of pure white light. A silent, perfect, complete annihilation. When the glow faded, nothing remained. The rest of the Ninth Armada scattered in absolute terror. Some ships fled into the black. Some surrendered where they stood. Some simply shut down their engines, their crews paralyzed by fear. And then, as quickly and as silently as it began, the battle was over. The stars grew quiet once more. The Terran fleet turned as one, fading back into the darkness from whence they came, vanishing like shadows in deep water. They left no message. They gave no pursuit. They left only silence and the ghosts of an armada. Back at the Imperial Palace, the Emperor waited for news of his glorious victory. The silence stretched for hours, then for days. Finally, a single, broken transmission arrived. A faint, desperate voice from a damaged scout ship that had escaped the slaughter. "This is Commander Varro. They're not human anymore. They are—" The signal died, leaving only static. No one spoke in the grand throne room. The Emperor, who had never known defeat, was quiet. He turned to his chief scientist, his voice barely a whisper. "What are they?" The scientist replied softly, his eyes cast down. If they are Terrans, my Emperor, they are no longer what we once were. It seems they have become something greater. The Emperor turned his gaze toward the star charts, his eyes cold and hard. Then we must find a way to understand them, he said slowly, deliberately, or find a way to destroy them. But in his heart, a cold seed of doubt had been planted. He knew the truth. No weapon in the entire Empire could match what they had just witnessed. Far beyond the Empire's reach, deep within the heart of Terran Command, the calm, artificial voices spoke again. Enemy fleet neutralized. Minimal casualties sustained. Awaiting next directive. Then, the voice of their Supreme Commander echoed softly through the chamber, a final, chilling decree. Let them remember, the galaxy is closed. That night, and for many nights to come, whispers spread across the galaxy, stories of a silent war, of ghost ships that moved like shadows, of humans who had transcended their flesh to become gods of metal and fire, and of the message that echoed in the fears of every would-be conqueror, by fire and will, the Terrans endure. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the cosmos, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more stories, and ring the bell so you never miss an update. We'll see you in the next one. The mighty Galactic Empire, once the ruler of countless worlds, was brought to its knees. A chilling silence had fallen across its borders ever since the fall of its legendary Ninth Armada. From the farthest trade outposts to the glittering heart of the capital, a single whisper echoed through the void. The Terrans have returned. Fear, a contagion faster than light, spread like wildfire. On bustling trade stations, seasoned workers suddenly refused any contracts that took them near the Forbidden Sol sector. Merchants, fearing for their fleets and fortunes, hastily closed their most profitable routes. Even battle-hardened soldiers, who had faced down alien horrors, would fall silent, their eyes filled with a nameless dread whenever the Terrans were mentioned. At the very pinnacle of power, the highest admirals now gazed at the star-dusted heavens with a newfound doubt, their confidence shattered. Yet one man refused to show fear. The Emperor himself, Kael Varos, sat alone in the vast, echoing silence of his throne room. His gaze was fixed upon a colossal holographic screen, which displayed nothing but the ghost of his once glorious fleet. 10,000 lives, 10,000 souls, simply gone. No wreckage, no distress calls, no debris, no explanation. Only a deafening, terrifying silence. Late that night, haunted by the specter of his defeat, he summoned his most trusted advisor, the one man who had tried to warn him. Meras, the Emperor's voice was a low, heavy rumble. Tell me again about the old humans, about the Terrans. Dr. Meras, a man whose age was written in the lines of his face and the wisdom in his eyes, hesitated for a moment. My Emperor, he began, his voice soft but clear. The Terrans were once much like us, ambitious, brilliant, and fiercely proud. But their pride contained a seed of recklessness. They built machines that learned faster than they could think. Some ancient legends say they fused their very minds with these creations. Others believe they evolved into something beyond human. The Emperor's brow furrowed into a deep frown. You speak of myths, old friend, children's stories. Meras shook his head gently. No, sire, I speak of warnings. He gestured, and a holographic record materialized in the air between them. A fragment of an ancient text, recovered from the deepest Earth archives. The script was archaic, yet its message was timelessly clear. We close the stars to save them from us. The Emperor stared at the words, a knot tightening in his stomach. They close the stars. From what? Meris's voice dropped to a near whisper. No one knows for certain, sire, but perhaps the real question is not what they closed the stars from, but what they feared might one day return. The Emperor leaned back heavily into his throne, the weight of 1,000 worlds on his shoulders. Outside the palace windows, the city lights of Viren Prime glittered like a sea of captured stars, but tonight even their brilliant glow seemed dim, as if the entire galaxy was holding its breath, waiting. Then, it happened. A message alert chimed, a small, encrypted signal that was utterly alien. It didn't originate from any known Imperial channel. It carried no source, no signal traceback, no coordinates. It was a ghost in the machine, and its content was just 3 chilling words. We wish to talk. The Emperor froze, every muscle tensed. Who sent this? He demanded, his voice sharp. The communications officer, a young man who had never known a day of true fear, looked pale, his face ashen. The signature, it matches the Terran energy profile, sire. For the first time in his long, conquering life, the Emperor felt a completely unfamiliar sensation, a cold, heavy weight settling deep inside his chest. It was fear. Yet, he was an Emperor. He straightened his shoulders, his regal bearing returning like a shield. Prepare the diplomatic channel. If they want to talk, then they will face the Emperor of the Stars. Moments later, the grand holoscreen in the throne room flickered to life. The image that appeared was not what anyone had expected. There was no fleet, no alien monster. In the center of the projection stood a single figure, tall, silent, and hauntingly human, yet not. Its face was like polished silvery metal, sculpted into an expression of serene perfection. Its eyes, deep and ancient, glowed with a faint blue light, brimming with an intelligence that felt older than the stars themselves. When it spoke, its voice was soft, yet it resonated with an undeniable power that filled the vast chamber. Emperor Kael Veros of the Galactic Empire, it said, its tone calm and measured. You have violated Terran borders. You have ignored our warnings. Why? The Emperor rose from his throne, his hands hidden behind his back, trembling slightly with rage. You destroyed my fleets. You annihilated thousands of my people, and you have the audacity to ask me why. The Terran's head tilted, a subtle, almost curious gesture. Your ships invaded a forbidden zone. We defended what is ours. The galaxy is closed for a reason. The Emperor's anger flared. Reason? You speak as if you own the very stars. For the first time, the light in the Terran's eyes seemed to dim, a flicker of something ancient and sad. We do not own. We guard. The room plunged into a tense silence. The Emperor stared, utterly confounded. Guard? Guard what? The Terran paused, as if weighing its words across millennia of memory. There are things beyond this galaxy, Emperor. Horrors that once tried to extinguish all life. We fought them, and we won. But the wound they left on reality remains. We stay here to keep that wound sealed. The Emperor scoffed, his disbelief turning to outrage. You expect me to believe these fairy tales? Monsters from beyond the stars? It's absurd. Believe it or not, the Terran replied, its voice as calm as deep space. It changes nothing. Your pride and your ambition endanger us all. The Emperor slammed his fist down on the arm of his throne. You cannot speak to me that way. I am the Emperor. The Terran's serene gaze never wavered. And I am the living memory of 10 billion souls who sacrificed themselves to save this galaxy. Do not test us again. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the hologram flickered and vanished. Silence, profound and absolute, flooded the chamber. The Emperor stood frozen, his face pale, his authority stripped away. For the first time, he didn't feel like a ruler of the cosmos. He felt like a small, ignorant child standing before a force of nature he could not possibly comprehend. Dr. Mera stepped forward, his voice a quiet whisper. My Emperor, perhaps we should listen. Perhaps they are not our enemies. The Emperor turned on him, his eyes blazing. They destroyed our fleets. But maybe, Maris countered gently, it was to protect something far, far greater. The Emperor strode to the vast window, staring out at the uncaring stars. They claim to protect the galaxy, he mused, his voice lowering. Yet they kill without a moment's hesitation. He paused. Or perhaps, they only protect themselves. Maris bowed his head. Either way, sire, we are not ready to face them again. That night, sleep offered no escape for the Emperor. His dreams were filled with visions of black, silent ships floating above burning worlds, of ghostly voices whispering warnings in the dark. He awoke with a start, his heart pounding, only to see the same untraceable message glowing on his private terminal. The fire is coming. Stay behind your walls. He deleted it in a flash of anger, but the words were seared into his mind. Miles and light years away within the silent, thinking heart of Terran Command, the same metallic figure stood motionless. A younger AI construct approached. Should we strike again? End the threat? It queried. The ancient being shook its head slowly. No, let them think, let them fear. Think. Let them. Its glowing eyes reflected the distant stars like dying embers. The fire sleeps, but not forever. It whispered to the silent void, a promise and a warning. And when it wakes, we will need them all. For weeks the galaxy held its breath. Silence reigned. No attacks, no messages, no sign of the elusive Terran ships that had so effortlessly humiliated the Galactic Empire. But for men like Emperor Kale Varos, silence wasn't peaceful. It was a screaming void. Sleep offered no rest, food had no taste. The thought that someone or something held power greater than his own gnawed at his soul. To his subjects, he was the unshakable ruler of the stars. But in the cold halls of his palace, his heart was a furnace of anger and shame. They humiliate us, he spat, pacing before his advisors. They hide behind words and shadows while my fleets burn. Dr. Meras, his wisest counsel, tried to reason with him. My Emperor, please. The Terrans warned us. They are not our enemy. Perhaps they only seek peace. The Emperor whirled on him, his eyes blazing. Peace? They obliterated our armadas. That is not peace. That is control. He strode to the great star map that glowed across the palace wall. The Sol sector pulsed an angry red, forbidden, sealed, an insult to his authority. Prepare the 10th Armada, he commanded, his voice dripping with ice. This time, we will not strike their borders. We will strike their very heart. Meras looked on in horror. Please, sire, you don't understand what they guard. They spoke of something beyond. I don't care what lies beyond, the Emperor roared. No one closes the stars to me. And so, across the Empire, a new war machine began to rise. A fleet of unprecedented scale, armed with terrifying experimental weapons, powered by cores that could incinerate a planet in hours. The wealth of a galaxy, the labor of millions and years of secret technology were forged into a single terrible purpose, to break Terran Command. But while the Empire forged its sword, the Terrans were watching. Deep within the fire curtain, the invisible barrier surrounding their space, a different kind of preparation was underway. In a command chamber filled with cold light and the quiet hum of immense power, the enigmatic Terran commander stood before a glowing map of the galaxy. The Emperor prepares another war, an AI voice stated, a simple fact. Another replied, its tone devoid of emotion. His pride is predictable. He will bring destruction upon himself. The commander's eyes, pools of soft blue light, flickered. Not just to himself, it said, its voice a quiet hum. If he opens the wrong path, he could unseal the rift. The word rift seemed to suck the very sound from the room. The machines fell silent. The commander turned. Prepare the fire protocols. If the Empire crosses the barrier again, we respond with fire and will. Meanwhile, far from the centers of power, Envoy Liran Dor, brother of the disgraced Captain Dor, traveled under a flag of truce. He carried no weapons, only a desperate message of peace from a small group of senators who saw the abyss yawning before them. As his ship crossed the outer perimeter of Terran space, its systems instantly went dark. A soft, synthesized voice filled the bridge. You enter restricted space. State your purpose. Liran's voice was steady. I come in peace. I bring a message. I wish to speak with Terran Command. Silence. Then, a flash of impossible white light. When it faded, Liran was no longer on his ship. He was standing in a vast metallic chamber, surrounded by shifting geometric patterns. Before him stood the Terran commander. "You carry the Emperor's words?" the machine-like being asked. Liran shook his head. "No, I come with my own. I want to understand. Why this war? Why have you closed the galaxy?" The commander observed him for a long moment. "You wish to understand? Then look." The walls of the chamber dissolved into a starfield of breathtaking beauty. But beyond the familiar constellations, a vast, churning emptiness grew, a storm of absolute shadow, actively consuming the light of distant galaxies. What is that?" Liran whispered, a primal fear clutching his heart. The Terran's voice was low, heavy with ancient sorrow. "The wound, an opening into a reality beyond our own. Long ago, it tore open, and creatures from that void tried to consume all life. The Terrans fought for centuries to seal it. The cost was immeasurable. When the last battle ended, we swore an eternal oath to guard the seal." Liran's blood ran cold. "And the Empire? By attacking you, we risk—" The commander nodded slowly. "Yes. Each weapon, each explosion near the curtain weakens the seal. Your Emperor, in his rage, is clawing at the bars of a cage that holds back utter annihilation." Liran stood in stunned silence. "If I tell him this, maybe he will stop." A flicker of something akin to sadness crossed the commander's face. "He will not listen. He seeks glory, not truth." "Then what will you do?" Liran asked, his voice barely a whisper. The Terran's reply was soft, yet it carried the weight of a final judgment. "If he comes again, we end him, not in hatred, but in mercy." Days later, Liran knelt in the Emperor's throne room, his pleas echoing in the vast chamber. "Sire, please listen. They are not our enemy. They protect us from a doom that would destroy everything." The Emperor's face was a mask of stone. "You sound like a coward," he said coldly. "Did they fill your head with their lies?" "It's not a lie," Liran shouted, scrambling to his feet. "They showed me. The rift is real." The Emperor turned away in disgust. "Enough. Guards, remove him." As Liran was dragged away, the Emperor whispered to himself, a new terrible mantra. "By fire, we rule, not by fear." When the 10th Armada finally launched, its engines burned with the fury of a dying star. It tore through the void and breached Terran space. At that exact moment, Terran Command activated the fire protocols. Across the entire Sol system, massive lines of pure energy ignited, red rivers of flame connecting planets and moons. The very fabric of space seemed to tremble and hum. Inside the command chamber, the Terran commander raised a single hand. "By fire and will," it said softly. "The galaxy will remember." Outside, the stars turned red. The 10th Armada, the pride of the Empire, simply vanished, erased in a single silent flash of light that spread across the void like a new terrible dawn. In the Emperor's palace, alarms shrieked and then died as all power failed. He stumbled to his window and stared at the sky. He saw the stars themselves burning red. For the first time in his life, Emperor Kale Varos fell to his knees. And far, far away within that, no one suspected that before the next sunrise, everything they knew, everything they had built, would be gone. Far above the peaceful skies, a message suddenly broke through, echoing across every single Imperial channel. It was the last message from Terran Command. "This galaxy is closed. By fire and will, we stand." At first, there was just confusion. What did it mean? A threat? A final warning? Then the sky began to turn red. In the high orbit of Viren Prime, the Empire's greatest defense fleet waited. 200 of the most advanced warships ever built, shields raised, weapons hot, ready for a fight. The admirals, confident in their might, had prepared for another glorious battle. But what came wasn't a battle. It was a judgment. A blinding wave of light, silent and absolute, swept across the system. It wasn't fire, not plasma, not a bomb of any kind we could comprehend. It was something far deeper, something that seemed to rewrite the very laws of the universe itself. Mighty warships began to melt without heat, their hardened hulls turning into shimmering streams of glowing dust. Engines sputtered and died. Shields vanished as if they had never been there. The entire fleet, the pride of the Empire, simply disappeared. Down on the planet, millions looked up in awe and terror. They saw the red glow spreading across the sky, a dawn made of blood. They saw their cities flicker as strange energy lines crossed through the clouds, like veins in a dying beast. And then, a profound silence fell. Every screen, every machine, every light went dark. For one long, terrifying minute, the entire Empire held its breath, suspended in a moment of absolute stillness. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Kael Varos stood alone in the vast command hall. The usual throng of guards and advisors was gone, replaced only by the fading echo of alarms. He stared at the massive holographic map before him, watching in disbelief as every red light representing his fleets winked out, one by one. He whispered to the empty room, his voice trembling, "This cannot be." The grand doors burst open. Dr. Maris, the Empire's chief scientist, ran in, his formal robes torn, his face a mask of pale horror. "My Emperor, it's over. The Terrans. They've unleashed a system-wide energy wave. Every fleet, every station, it's all gone." The Emperor grabbed him by the shoulders, his grip like steel. "Can we fight back? Can we launch a counterattack?" Maris just shook his head, his eyes wide with a terrifying realization. "There is nothing to fight. They are not attacking us, my lord. They are rewriting us." "Rewriting?" The Emperor echoed, the word foreign and chilling. "Yes," Maris said, his voice barely a whisper. "They are resetting everything. Every piece of technology, every machine that could ever be used to wage war. It's being turned off. Permanently." The Emperor fell silent, the weight of those words crushing him. The lights in the palace flickered once, twice, and then the last vestiges of imperial power plunged into total darkness. Far above the now dead planet, the Terran fleets hung like silent, ominous shadows in the red-tinged sky. They made no sound, no movement. They didn't fire another shot. They simply watched. On the bridge of one of the Terran Command ships, a calm, synthetic voice reported, "Imperial systems neutralized. Military capacity reduced to 0. Civilian casualties contained." The Terran commander, a figure cloaked in shadow, nodded slowly. "Good. No more blood than was absolutely necessary." Another voice, younger, asked from the side, "Shall we land, Commander? Shall we claim what is ours?" The commander shook its head. "No, we are not conquerors. We are guardians. Let them rebuild if they can." It turned its gaze toward the dark image of the Empire's capital. "This lesson will remain. Power without wisdom always ends the same way." Back on the surface, Emperor Kael Varos made his way to the balcony of his darkened palace. He looked up at the silent Terran ships, glowing faintly like new, malevolent stars among the clouds. He whispered, almost to himself, a question for the ages. "What are you?" For the first time in his life, an answer came. Not through a screen, not through a speaker, but directly into his mind. A calm, impossibly powerful voice spoke a single, devastating sentence. "We are what you could have been." The Emperor's legs gave out. He fell to his knees on the cold stone. Tears streamed down his face. Not from pain, not from loss, but from the crushing weight of that terrible, beautiful truth. He had spent his entire life chasing power, building an empire on conquest. And in one silent moment he saw how utterly small and meaningless that power truly was. Days turned into weeks. Across the galaxy, the once great imperial systems went dark, one after another. Without their fleets, their communications, or their central leadership, the empire didn't fall in a blaze of glory. It simply collapsed, dissolving like sugar in water. But the Terrans never attacked again. They didn't seize planets. They didn't demand tribute. They just disappeared. All that remained was a great, shimmering wall of red light stretching across the galaxy, a barrier of pure, unknowable energy that separated what was once the Empire from Terran space. The few desperate explorers who dared to approach it never returned. People started calling it the Fire Curtain. In the weeks that followed, the Emperor broadcast one final message to all surviving worlds. His voice was tired, broken, and stripped of all its former arrogance. It was just honest. "We reached for the stars," he said, "and we found our end. The Terrans are not gods, but they guard something greater than gods. We must learn from our arrogance or we will vanish like them. The age of conquest is over. The age of silence begins." And with that, the last emperor turned off the last transmitter of the Galactic Empire. Years later, on forgotten colonies and fledgling worlds, children born after the fall would ask their elders about the old times, about the Great War, about the sky that burned red, about the silent ghosts that still haunted the stars. And every elder on every world would tell them the same story. The Terrans came with fire. They didn't destroy us. They saved us from ourselves. They ended our empire, but they may have saved the galaxy. They closed the stars so that life, true life, could finally go on. And far beyond the fire curtain, deep within the silent halls of Terran Command, the AI voices continued their endless, patient watch. "Empire neutralized," one stated. "Galactic balance restored," replied another. And then, the Terran commander spoke, its voice soft but certain, a promise whispered to the cosmos. "Let them grow. Let them remember. We stand. By fire and by will." The chamber grew quiet once more. Outside, the distant stars flickered like candles in a gentle breeze. And then, there was peace. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the stars. If you enjoyed this story, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more tales from across the galaxy. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the Terran's judgment. Until next time, stay curious. A century has passed since the Galactic Empire crumbled into dust. The stars fell silent. The great fleets vanished. The endless wars ceased. And small worlds, scattered and alone, began to rebuild their lives under new suns. People still whispered stories of the Day of Fire, that cataclysmic moment when Imperial ships turned to ash, skies burned crimson, and a single resolute voice echoed across the void. "By fire and will, we stand." But no one had seen a Terran since. The fire curtain, a blazing, silent barrier, still burned at the edge of known space. It was a wall between gods and mortals, a celestial tomb from which no ship ever returned. Until now. In the year 4120, a small science vessel, the Hope's Wing, drifted near the shimmering edge of the fire curtain. Aboard were 6 souls, scientists, dreamers, and one young captain, Aria Venn. She had been raised on stories of the Terrans, stories told by her grandfather, one of the last Imperial officers to witness the fall. He used to tell her, his voice heavy with memory, "The Terrans didn't destroy us, Aria. They saved us from ourselves." Those words had become the compass of her life. Now, standing before the vast, glowing red wall, she whispered, "Grandfather, I'm here." Her crew exchanged nervous glances. "Captain, the readings are unstable," said First Officer Wren, his voice tight. "Energy levels are off the charts. If we go any closer, we might never return." Aria offered a soft, determined smile. "Maybe it's time someone tried again." The Hope's Wing moved forward, its engines a low, steady hum against the cosmic silence. The fire curtain filled the view screen, a living, breathing storm of red light and swirling shadows. As they breached its edge, the ship's sensors screamed, a frantic cacophony of alarms. And then, everything went silent, utterly silent. No alarms, no engine hum, only an all-consuming light. The red glow enveloped them. Aria felt her body grow strangely light, her heartbeat slowing to a crawl. A voice, calm, distant, yet somehow familiar, resonated not in her ears but in her mind. "Who enters the curtain?" Aria swallowed, her throat suddenly dry. I am Captain Aria Venn of the Free Systems. I come in peace. You come seeking? The voice inquired, its tone unreadable. Aria looked around. Her crew was frozen in place like statues in a tableau. Time itself seemed to have stopped for everyone but her. She whispered, her voice barely a breath. I seek to understand. To know why you close the stars. The intense light softened. A shape began to coalesce before her, tall, human-like, yet etched with glowing silver lines. Its eyes were endless pools of starlight. You are not the first to seek, it said, but you are the first to ask without fear. Aria stared, a profound sense of awe washing over her. Are you Terran? The figure inclined its head. We are what remains of them, what they became. She took a hesitant step forward. What does that mean? The Terran's voice was gentle, almost achingly human. Long ago, your kind and ours were one. The Terrans rose from a world called Earth, from a cradle of light. They built machines that could think, minds that could dream, and hearts that burned with an unbreakable will. But in their journey they discovered what lay beyond the stars. The wound, the endless dark. They fought it, and in fighting it, they changed. Aria's brow furrowed. Changed how? They became more than flesh and bone. They became the fire and the will that guard this galaxy. They are not gone. They have simply moved beyond what you call life. A wave of sadness and wonder crashed over Aria. So all this time, you've been protecting us? The Terran regarded her with a look of ancient kindness. Yes. Your ancestors craved power, conquest. We sought peace. When they tried to break the seal and unleash the darkness, we stopped them, not out of hatred, but to save what was left. The light around them shimmered like a gentle celestial wind. Aria whispered, Then why now? Why let me through? The Terran turned its head slightly as if listening to voices carried on stellar currents. Because the stars are waking again. The wound stirs beyond the void, and once more, the galaxy must choose. Aria's breath caught in her throat. Choose what? To fear the fire, or to become it? The chamber of light around her dissolved. Suddenly, she was floating above a breathtaking vision. Galaxies spinning like cosmic whirlpools, titanic clashes of light and darkness, and fleets of ancient ships soaring into storms of pure energy. And at the very heart of it all, a single, beautiful blue world. Earth. This was home, the Terran said softly. Your home too. You have forgotten it. But it remembers you. Tears welled in Aria's eyes. A deep primal longing filled her. I want to see it. The Terran smiled. You will, but not alone. It raised a hand, and a beam of pure light shot out, touching her chest. Instantly, the world snapped back into focus. The Hope's wing systems roared back to life. Her crew gasped, time resuming its flow. Captain, what happened? Rin shouted, his eyes wide with confusion. Aria smiled, her own eyes now glowing with a faint silver light that mirrored the Terrans. We're not alone anymore, she said, her voice filled with a new certainty. And we're going home. As the ship turned away from the curtain, the Terran's voice echoed one last time, a promise and a command. Go, child of the stars. Carry the fire. Remember our will. The fire curtain shimmered, and then miraculously it began to fade. It didn't vanish, but opened, like a great door swinging wide. For the first time in a century, Terran space shone again, clear and blue, bathed in a gentle, welcoming light. Aria and her crew stared out, speechless. Before them stretched a new sky, strange, vibrant worlds, forgotten star stations, and there, at the farthest point of their vision, a small blue planet, a beacon in the dark. Earth. As the Hope's wing glided into Terran space, Aria turned to her crew. This is not the end, she whispered. This is where it all begins again. And far behind them, Deep in the reawakened silence of the stars, the collective voice of the Terrans spoke one last time. A song carried across galaxies, a declaration to the cosmos.